Hello, and welcome to week 7. This is your week 7 introduction. Week 7 has some of my favorite tasks in it, so welcome to wonderful week 7. So the main task for this week, of course, is actually one that I discussed in last week's video, which I'll post just below this one in our on the task list. Be sure you look at that video and first check the general questions board to see if the question that you have about the literature review has already been asked and answered there. If not, be sure to ask and answer any general questions there first. I will be out of town for a lot of this week, although I'll be back totally in action by Friday, which means that I'll be able to catch up on all your stuff then if that's, if you're asking any sorts of questions like that. So please, as I am patient with you when you travel, please be patient with me. But know that I will be around. So do ask those general questions on the general questions board, and don't hesitate to email. I'll catch it when I get back, or I'll catch it probably on the airplane. Let's be clear. I can't stay away from you for that long. Okay, so for this week, you have a couple of other things to do in the meantime. It's a relatively light week for you, and it does something that I think is really useful for you going forward. It's one of those bits of the class that I think is useful in your sort of everyday life. So, how often does that happen in school, right? So this is something that you'll use and a skill that I think you can take with you. Okay, but let's talk about the whole week just generally. Here, let me share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. All right. This is the week 7 task list. First of all, you have a reading from Ridley. Now, I assign you this Diana Ridley piece about the literature review after I've already talked about the literature review last week. That is by design, because I don't want you to think of what Diana Ridley is doing here as your assignment. I actually want you to think about what I have talked to you about in the video as what you're assigned to do, and what Diana Ridley is doing as talking to you about the bigger picture, right? The bigger picture of what literature reviews are for and what they do, and sort of give you all the options of sort of how a literature review can be accomplished. Yeah, I wanted you to think just about the assignment first, and then sort of think more broadly about the kind of thing that you can be doing. I hope that's helpful for you in sort of making sure that you're actually doing the task that you need to be doing right now. You're all great students, so one of the things that you tend to do is try to overdo things rather than underdo them. You seem to overdo them, so I'm trying to help you not overdo things. But the main two activities for this week are really, besides the literature review, which I've already discussed, is to practice your elevator speech and practice listening to other people's elevator speeches. So let me get to that page briefly here. All right, so I explain in the text here what an elevator speech is like, and I give you my own elevator speech actually in an elevator for my thesis that I did at Iliff for my master's degree. What I want for you to do for Thursday, here, let me stop sharing. You don't have to actually look at all this. What I want you to do for Thursday is actually give me your elevator speech. Now, an elevator speech or an elevator pitch goes to different audiences. So I'm just asking for you to give me one that you would tell a classmate about your elevator, or about your thesis project, right? So you're all doing thesis projects, your peers are around doing other kinds of projects, and somebody is bound to ask you at some point, hey, what are you doing for your thesis? This is your practice to do your snappy pitch to tell people what exactly it is that you're doing. So in this one, you can give it a little more meat, but again, keep it really short. I give you the option, and I really encourage you to practice doing it on video. I think that's really helpful. If you're not comfortable with the technology, though, don't worry about it. Just do it on text. Since I won't be around as much to help you with it, I don't want you to stress out about the technology. Although I do encourage you to contact support at ilf.edu if this is a skill you would like to add to your arsenal. So here's what just the elevator speech. I just want you to do it in the tone that you would do when you were talking to a classmate. Now, an interesting thing about elevator speeches, they go to all kinds of contexts, and you may just for your own benefit want to practice for yourself what it would mean to talk about this to other kinds of people. Like say, for instance, when I tell my mother what I'm doing academically, I don't use exactly the same language that I use when I talk to a peer in the same field, or even the same language that I use when I talk to a peer in a different field. So when I'm talking to a scientist, I actually talk in a different way than I would if I were talking to a biblical scholar. I also use different language depending on how much people need to know. So a colleague of mine was telling me that he was in the airport the other day, and he was going through TSA, and he had a whole bunch of copies of his new book, right? And he said the TSA agent was scanning them with the metal detector. You know, he set off some alarm, and they were scanning them. And they said, hey, are these all your book? Is this the same book? And the TSA agent asked him what his book was about, and he gave her the 5-second elevator speech. Remember, all she really wanted to know is like, do you know what these books are? So that's another use for an elevator speech, getting yourself through TSA. I'd like you to post one for Thursday, and then for Sunday, I would like you to go through and look at a couple of your peers' elevator speeches. I encourage you especially to look at the peer that you reviewed their thesis proposal statement, or their thesis proposal draft rather, to see if, it looks the same to you as it did then. I think that's a really useful one to do, but also just anybody else too who interests you. So I'd like you to respond to 2 people. Same thing with the elevator speech. I don't actually want you to talk for very long. Just ask sort of the first thing that comes to mind, the first question that you might have if someone gave you this pitch. And then when you've had the chance to do that and sort of look and see what your peers have asked you and maybe make some modifications if you want to, then I want you to go over to your profile page on Canvas, your bio on Canvas. I give you a link in the discussion board to help you find it. And then put a little statement of your elevator pitch right there across the top of your bio. Say, I'm currently writing a thesis about blah, and just put that there. I think it's a useful thing for people to know about you in Canvas. So yeah, it's just a fun thing to have up there so that people can know what kind of conversation to start with you about things like this. Have a wonderful week 7. Don't hesitate again to ask questions, and I'll see you next week.